Thank you for watching this training on Avaya call reporting. During this section, we'll go over the installation. We'll cover the steps necessary within Avaya IP Office, how to download and install Avaya call reporting, the configuration steps, the app setup, which includes the recording library, as well as the SMTP settings. So let's go ahead and get started. First, log into your Avaya IP Office. There are a number of settings you should check to ensure Avaya call reporting reports on all the desired features. First, under the System tab, and then Telephony, ensure that Show Account Code is checked. If it is unchecked, Avaya call reporting will not report on the account codes entered within Avaya IP Office. Next, select the User tab. Ensure that each user that you want to report on within Avaya call reporting is not excluded from the directory. If they are excluded from the directory, they will not show up in Avaya call reporting. If you are using recording library through Avaya call reporting and wish to record calls using Voicemail Pro, you can set that up now under the Users, Groups, Incoming Call Routes, or Account Codes. Set the Voice Recording tab to the desired inbound and outbound calls you wish to record. Set the destination to Voice Recording Library. By default, this is set to the user's mailbox. You'll need to set manual recording to the Voice Recording Library as well. Be sure to do this for each user you wish to record. Next, select Groups. Under each group, set the ring mode to the desired type. For best results in Avaya call reporting, it is recommended to use sequential, rotary, or longest waiting. Under the Queuing tab, ensure that queue type is set to Assign Call on Agent Alert. This is recommended for any application using the CTI connection, namely Avaya call reporting. When you set Assign Call on Agent Alert, that is the call that they will pick up when they answer the call. Next, go to the Voice Recording tab and set the desired amount of recordings you wish for each of the groups. Again, set that to Voice Recording Library and decide if you want to do external and internal. Then click OK. You can do the same thing under Incoming Call Routes for voice recording. That is all you need to do within the Avaya IP Office main configuration. Next, we need to set up the DevLink 3 username and password for Avaya call reporting. Please log into the security settings. First, under the security settings, ensure that DevLink 3 connection is enabled. Select the System tab, and then Unsecured Interfaces, and ensure TAPI DevLink 3 is enabled. Next, under Rights Group, right-click to create a new rights group. For this training, I will call this Training. Next, under the Telephony APIs, set that rights group that you just created to use the DevLink 3 connection. Next, you need to create a service user. This requires a username and password, which you will need during the Avaya call reporting installation. Please note that there are some password requirements when setting this up. After you've created the username and password, ensure that the service user is using the rights group that you just created. Hit OK. You'll need to do this for each IP office within the network. So on Server Edition, this is required for each IP500 gateway, as well as within a small community network. From there, your Avaya IP Office is ready to go. Next, once you have downloaded Avaya call reporting, you can run them as an administrator. In this training, we'll go over the full setup as well as the app setup. Start with the Avaya call reporting setup first. Run it as an administrator. Agree to the license agreement. Set the default destination for where the software will be installed. Upon purchasing Avaya call reporting, you should have obtained a 32-character serial key. You will need to enter that now. Go ahead and hit Next for the SQL database. This is the web server and the port that Avaya call reporting uses. You can change that from the default 9080. If your serial key contains Avaya call reporting recording library, you'll need to go and download the app setup. You can achieve this by clicking on this link here and then simply hit Next. Avaya call reporting is now installed. You can access this via a web browser by going to the name of the PC followed by :9080 or the IP address followed by :9080. This should have also installed an application or a shortcut on your desktop. This instance runs outside of a browser as an application. The default username for Avaya call reporting is administrator. The default password is the word password. After you log in for the first time, you'll need to establish your IP office connections. This is the rights group and the service user that you created. Go ahead and hit Add. For the API, use the devlink 3, which is recommended, and enter a site name. I recommend doing this for each of the sites within your Avaya IP Office Small Community Network or Server Edition environment. Enter the IP address of the Avaya IP Office. If you're not sure where to obtain that, log back into your Avaya IP Office and select the System Settings tab. Enter the username, which I did training 1, and then enter the password. You will need to complete that step for each of the IP offices. In this example, I'm only connecting to a single IP500 gateway. During this installation training, we will cover a full installation which includes call reporting, call recording, real-time agent seats, and agent dashboards. If your customer serial key only contains a standard reports license, all you'll need to do is the first step here under licensed users. By default, this auto assigns, but you can change who has a reporting license by selecting here. Here you can select and deselect the desired users. Once you've selected the desired users, go ahead and click Finish. It will then move on to the next module. In this instance, real-time agent seats, I have a total of 25. I can select all if I have enough licenses. In this case, I do not, so I want to select the agents one at a time, or I can do that by their different IP Office Hunt Group membership. Once I've selected the desired agents, go ahead and hit Finish. Next, you will assign the agent dashboard seat. Now you'll notice only the agents that I assigned a real-time agent seat can be selected for an agent dashboard seat. Go ahead and select the desired agent dashboard users. It is recommended that you schedule backups for Avaya call reporting. In the case that your server crashes, you have a backup of the database. You can schedule those backups to run hourly, daily, weekly, or monthly. During this training, I'll set it to run once a month. You can set it on a specific day of the month or specific date of the month. I'll go ahead and do it on the first of every month for all months. You can also limit the number of total size of the Avaya call reporting backup or how many total previous backups you wish to obtain. In this case, I'm going to set it to just have 3 backups. So when this runs this 4 months from now, it will delete the oldest backup, giving me the most 3 current. You can edit the directory path. It is recommended to do this to a shared drive or a network drive and not to the same destination on the same server of Avaya call reporting. You can then enter the support and technical contacts for your Avaya call reporting. Go ahead and hit Finish. From here, your Avaya call reporting installation is completed, but you'll notice in the top right-hand corner, it has a red information arrow. This is indicating that my recording library is not running. I need to install the recording library as part of the apps installation when we were doing the Avaya call reporting installation. If you clicked on the link, that should have taken you to a place where you could download the apps setup. Let's go ahead and run that now. Agree to the license agreement. Here you can download a number of different applications available within Avaya call reporting. In this instance, we're going to select the recording library. Enter the IP address of your Avaya call reporting server. If it is the same IP address, you can enter the local host or again, its IP address. If it is a different IP address, please enter the Avaya call reporting server address here. Give it a unique system ID and select Install. Avaya Call Reporting Recording Library is now installed. Please log back into your Avaya Call Reporting main interface and select Admin and then System Settings. Select Recording Libraries, and here you'll see the one recording library you configured. You can go in and edit that to match the Avaya Call Reporting recording library setup. There are two ways to record calls with Avaya Call Reporting. First is using Voicemail Pro, which we went over in the IP Office section. If you're using Voicemail Pro to record calls, you'll need to set Avaya Call Reporting to act as an FTP server. By default, it is disabled. Go ahead and enable that and give it a username and password. From here, you can do additional settings such as store your recordings with encryption if desired. You can also clean the monitor directory, which is enabled by default, which will remove the recordings after Avaya Call Reporting has obtained them from the Voice Recording Library folder on Voicemail Pro, which is what the FTP server is going to do. Let's now go and configure your Voicemail Pro to accept the connection from Avaya Call Reporting. You can set up this connection using the Web Management Interface or the Voicemail Pro client application. Select Applications, and then select Voicemail Pro, System Preferences. From here, you'll see Voicemail Recording. Here you will enter the FTP username and password that you established in Avaya Call Reporting. Set the destination location and the IP address of your Avaya Call Reporting. You can test the connection. Once the connection is established, log back into your Avaya Call Reporting instance. From here, your Avaya Call Reporting recording library is set up if you're using Voicemail Pro. If you're using Active Recording, go ahead and set up a new recording library. Select Active Recording from the drop-down menu. You don't need to worry about an FTP server application. You'll just simply set your destination of where you want your recordings to be stored. You can also set up drive pooling to save your recordings to different locations throughout your network. You can set up new storage pools based off different locations, limit the storage space available for those recordings, as well as set up retention policies to delete recordings after a certain time period to make room for new recordings, or to auto-archive or delete recordings after a certain time period. Hit OK, and then save. Next, you need to establish your recording rules for active recording. This uses a SIP connection to your Avaya IP office to establish the recording with Avaya Active Recording. Simply establish your recording rules based off of incoming number dialed, similar to incoming call route, external number, agent, group, or call sequence events. Let's go ahead and select agent, and then select the desired agents we wish to record. I can go ahead and select all, and then give that a recording rule. Under Basic Call Event, this gives you more options. For instance, if you wanted to only record agents with a specific call direction, such as internal, inbound, or outbound. You can do this for group calls as well. You can set it to only record talking events or the entire call. Once you've set up your recording rules, go ahead and click OK, and then save. From there, your active recording library is now set up. The last thing we need to ensure is that our SMTP server settings are enabled. This allows customers to schedule reports as well as establish standard alerts and triggers. To set up your SMTP settings, select System Settings, and then Basic Settings. Here you can enter your report mail server information. Enter a valid email address. If your mail server uses encryption, you can select from SSL or TLS. Enter the host. You can do name or IP address, enter the SMTP port, and if your mail server requires authentication, enter the username and password. You can select Send Test Email, but please note that this sometimes fails if your customer or account is using a Gmail account. The best way to establish a test is to schedule an actual report and have it run. From there, your Avaya call reporting installation is now complete. You are able to log data, record calls, monitor agents in real time, and set up agent dashboards. After you have completed your Avaya call reporting installation, there are a number of basic administration features you should be aware of, such as how to create the different account types, how to reassign the licenses, as well as some basic administration and tech tips within each of the modules, including standard reports, custom reports, recording library, real-time agency, and agent dashboards. So let's go ahead and take a look. After logging into Avaya call reporting, under user management and user accounts, you can see the 3 different levels of account types: administrator, manager, and user. An administrator has full access to all of the software, users, groups, and features. A manager has full access to all of the software and the features and users and groups, but does not have access to the IT settings found under admin system settings. So they can't come in and change IP addresses. They can't change any of that information. A user account has similar access to a manager, but you can restrict their access based off of users, groups, and features. Simply select Edit User Access, and across the top you have the different features, modules, and the user sets. So for example, if you did not want this user to have access to Cradle to Grave, you could hit the drop-down menu and select No Access, or perhaps Partial Access, and then select the users that they have access to. You can also expand the users and just give them access to certain group calls. You can go across all of the different modules such as reporting, same thing, partial access. If they have custom reports, do they have the ability to create reports? Can this user schedule reports? Which reports do they have access to, as well as the groups and users? Same with recording. Now you'll notice I currently only have access to 4 users within my call recording. That is because under Cradle to Grave, I only gave this user access to those 4 users. If this user had full access, you would see all of the users under recording, and then you could restrict their access there and again disable access to the recording monitor. You could give them permissions to listen to all the users, but perhaps you don't want them to have the ability to download or delete those users' recordings. And then under real time, again, you can give them access to particular wallboards, or maybe some aren't visible. Maybe they can create new wallboards and again, limit their access by groups and users. To change the default password of the system administrator, select the drop-down menu and enter a new password and then confirm that password and click Save. Let's now go over how to reassign the user licenses that you completed during the installation. If ever you need to reassign a real-time agent license, an agent dashboard license, or perhaps enable a new user for reporting, simply select User Management and then select the appropriate license field that you need to change. So if you need to change a real-time agent license, select License Real-Time Agents and enable the new user and disable any users that you need to select from. Same thing goes for licensed dashboard agents as well. Reminder, you will only see the licensed real-time users under the available list, and then selected you can remove them as needed. Once you're done reassigning all of the different users and licenses, simply select Refresh Users and Groups. Lastly, I want to go over user roles. User roles allows you to create groupings of users, so that way it's easier to run reports, schedule reports, administer real-time wallboards from a single user management interface. You will see user roles throughout the entire Avaya call reporting software. This allows supervisors and managers to simply select a large group of users by selecting a role. There are default roles created by using the Avaya IP Office Hunt groups. So if they want to administer their users based off roles out of the IP office, you can use hunt groups. If they want to administer their roles within Avaya call reporting, just simply select Create New Role. I'll go ahead and enter Demo. If you'd like to use Avaya call reporting to administer your roles, simply select Create Role. I'm going to go ahead and hit Training. And then I can assign the appropriate users that I want to be a part of the training role. And again, you'll see this example throughout the software. Click OK, and again, refresh users and groups. This does not reboot the IP Office system. This only refreshes your Avaya call reporting software. You can continue using the software, but some of those changes may not apply until you log out and log back in. Let's now go over a few basic tech tips and administration features that you should be aware of when it comes to standard reports. Let's review the SMTP setup, system alerts, system logging, how to schedule a report, call cost profiles, and the report summary tables. Within Avaya call reporting, you can schedule reports and receive real-time notifications if the system stops logging. But in order to receive those emails, you need to ensure that Avaya call reporting has been established with the customer's SMTP or mail server. To do this, under Admin and then System Settings, Basic Settings, update the report email if they have encryption, enter the SMTP host, the port number, and if their mail server requires authentication, enter a username and password. Once completed, go ahead and click Save. Once you've completed the SMTP settings, to set up system alerts, select Real Time and then Alerts and Triggers. There are different alerts and triggers based off the different modules. For standard triggers, you have emergency call notifications such as 911 emergency call notification. To adjust who receives that notification, simply enter the email address, separate multiple email addresses by a comma. If you want to receive a text message, you'll need to enter the phone number at the phone number's SMS gateway or carrier services. So for example, if you were on Sprint or Verizon, how to receive a text would be to enter the phone number, the cell phone number, at whatever Sprint's SMS messaging gateway is. A simple Google search will show you these results. You can also send a desktop notification to users. This does require that user is logged in to the Avaya call reporting desktop application. This will just simply notify them in real time as soon as someone dials an emergency number. To adjust the emergency numbers, simply go to Admin, then System Settings, Basic Settings. Select Emergency Numbers, and here you can add all of the emergency numbers that you need to see. 911 is configured by default. To add additional emergency numbers, go ahead and select Find and enter the country which you wish to add. You can also add additional numbers to the list, such as the local police department. Once completed, go ahead and hit OK. You can also add a location to the emergency alert. This is a manual entry, and you'll have to do this for each of the users, but this will be displayed in the text, email, or the pop screen message, depending on what you put associated with each user. Once you're finished, go ahead and hit OK. Additional standard alerts include logging issues. This is useful if ever Avaya call reporting loses its connection to an IP office gateway or the primary or secondary server edition. You can also be notified if Avaya call reporting's server space or disk space starts running low. It will send you an alert if ever that disk space reaches 95% capacity, so that way you can take action before the hard drive fills up. We'll go over recording issues and insufficient recording ports when we review call recording. Let's now review how to ensure the system is logging data. You can do this a number of different ways. First, in the top right-hand corner, you will see a status window. You can click on that status and it will show you all the current settings within your Avaya call reporting. It will say logging however many systems that you have. In this instance, it's just saying demo. If we were to log into a production system, it will show you how many nodes you have logging. If you have multiple sites and one of those sites go down, it will show you which site is not logging data, which is why, again, it's important to put a name associated for each location during installation. You can also review that the system's logging data by going and running a simple cradle-to-grave query for the last few minutes. You can run test calls and see those calls within seconds after the call is completed. Just simply select the date and time range, adjust the criteria or time period that you wish to look at, and hit execute. Here you will see the most recent call logs, and you can scroll down to the bottom or search or hit the criteria based off of the timestamp, and this will sort as needed. Let's now review how to schedule a report. To schedule a report, you can do this two ways. First, simply select Schedule Report, hit New Schedule, select the report you wish to schedule. You can select multiple reports and schedule them at the same time by holding down Control and selecting the different reports. In this training, I'll just schedule one report and we'll go with abandoned calls. Simply hit Next. Give it a name that you wish to have it appear within your report scheduler. This will also be the name that shows up on the subject line if you email the reports. Enter the email addresses you wish this to go to. You can enter multiple email addresses, just separate with a comma. If the report size is a large file, you may wish to email it as a link rather than sending the format that you select down below as a file. You can also save the report to the directory, or you can have it printed. In order to have it printed, the printer must be added to the Avaya call reporting PC or server, not the supervisor's or administrator's PC. So the printer must be added to the actual Avaya call reporting server to have that show up as an available printer. Once you've selected the desired outcome, hit Next. Next, you will determine what time you received this report. Simply select Delivery Time and enter the time that you wish to see. For example, if I wanted to receive this report every Monday, I'd select the next available Monday and the time I wish it to send. You can then determine how frequently the report is ran. You can select from hourly, daily, day of the week, weekly, or monthly. Because I'm having this run every Monday, I'm going to select weekly. And you can determine how frequently this runs. So if you only want to receive it every other week, you would do every 2 weeks. If you only wanted to receive it once a month on Monday, you could do that as well every 4 weeks. Or, again, just select monthly. Now that you've determined how you get it and when you get it, you need to determine what information it's going to query from the database when it runs that scheduled report. Simply select Report Timeframe and select the date range. You'll notice I can't select dates in the future because this is going to run on the 4th for the first time. Because I'm running this report weekly, it makes sense to run it for the week before. So I'll go ahead and select from the 28th to the 3rd. There's no reason to schedule this again going forward. The software is intuitive and will run based off of the criteria the next time it runs. So for example, when this runs on the 11th, it will give me the data from the 4th to the 10th. When it runs on the 18th, it'll give me the data from the 11th to the 17th. Again, if you need to adjust the hours or days that it's looking at within that date range, simply select Advanced. Because I want all days and all 24 hours out of the day, I'll simply hit OK. The next criteria you'll see will change based off the report that you wish to schedule. For example, abandoned calls allows me to filter by group. If I want to run it for the entire system, I'll leave the group blank. I can also add charts to the scheduled report if I wish, as well as adjust the report skin if I have custom reports. I'll go ahead and hit Finish. You can also schedule reports by right-clicking on the standard reports or custom reports if you have that module and simply select Schedule Report. Let's now go over call cost profiles. Within Avaya call reporting, you can associate costs to specific users or departments, in this case, roles. To do that, simply select Call Cost and here's your available reports. Again, roles is a group of users, so this could be also associated to a department. You just need to add all the users from that department to a particular role. However, when you select the reports, you'll notice one of the options is a call cost profile. By default, there are no call cost profiles created. However, it is very simple to do. Simply create a new call cost profile by selecting Add, give it a name or a title, enter the currency format. If you need to change this to the euro or pound, just simply enter that symbol there. And then you can also assign a default rate. So if your call doesn't match the criteria of any of your associated rates, it will default to the rate you select here. We'll just go ahead and call this default, and we'll give it a rate of 2 cents a minute. To add rates based off of area codes or specific phone numbers, simply select Add. For instance, out of the US, if I wanted to associate a cost to a call based off international, I may want to call this international, give it a rate per minute, and then enter the number criteria. This could be specific by country. So if I wanted to do something like, I want to associate a call cost to the UK, I might do something like 901144, because that would be the number sequence that I dial to dial internationally to London. If I wanted to just do all international calls with the same rate, I would just do call starts with 9011, which is the international dial pattern. Simply hit OK. You can continue to add all of the additional rates that you wish. Once completed, click OK. It is also important to note, if you do this and you feel it's going to be something you do on a regular basis, once you've completed this one time, you can export that call cost profile and import it for future customers very easily by selecting Import and then selecting the file that you exported. Your system is now set up to run call cost profiles based off your criteria for all of the different call cost reports. Let's now go over report summary tables. When running a report, all reports will have a summary table in the top right-hand corner. To run a report is very simple. Simply select the time frame down in the bottom right-hand corner. You can run the report for a single day, a month, a week, a year. It's really up to you and your customers. Once you have the date range selected, you can also adjust the hours or days that it's looking at by selecting Advanced, adjust the date and time period, days of the week, or time of the day for all days. Now this is important to understand. If you simply select 8 to 5 on the report start time and end time, that will only apply to the start and end date. So for example, I selected a week here. That means it will start the run time at 8 a.m. on the 14th, all 24 hours on the 15th, 16th, and 17th, and then it will end at 5 p.m. on the 18th because I just had it select 8 to 1700 hours. If I wanted to do 8 to 5 all days out of the week, I would adjust the time of day right here under the 24-hour period. I could also select, I only want to see this for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, even though I selected an entire week. Once you have the time range that you wish, go ahead and click OK, and then select the agents. Here you'll see your first example of roles. So if I wanted to run this report on the sales team, which is a default group out of the IP office, I can do that. I can edit my roles from this report where I can create new ones or add users to it, or I can select users and then select my users from the drop-down list. I could select all, deselect all, select an extension range, and select all from there. Once you have the user selected, you can add charts to the reports. Here you'll see all the available values within that report. You can do line charts, pie charts, or bar charts. It's really up to you. You can then click and drag, expand the reports as needed. You can also run the reports in 4 different formats: PDF, Excel spreadsheet, HTML, or CSV. It is important to note that if you added charts to the report, they will only be displayed if you selected PDF reports. Here I have my report. Along the top, you can see my report summary table. This is a summary of the number of calls. It is not a summary of the columns. So for example, if you had an inbound call that went to Alexander Burns, and then she transferred it over to Edward Harris, both extensions are going to get credit for that call. But up in the summary table, it's only going to count it one time because it was indeed just one call. Let me show you an example of what I mean. We'll go back to Cradle to Grave and we'll select from our drop-down menu, we will look for a call that has a transfer event. This call is an abandoned call. Here you can see it got transferred by Jared Baker, then went to the queue, and then the calling party hung up the call. But let's find one that it was involved with multiple agents. Here we go. Here, a call came in, rang to the marketing group, and Jared Baker, extension 1166, answered the call. He talked for 4 minutes and 2 seconds and then transferred the call over to Monica, where she rang for 4 seconds and then picked up the call. Looks like talked for 57 seconds, parked the call, picked up the call, talked for another 23 seconds, and then hung up in the call. Now, if we go back to our report, again, both agents will get credit for answering this inbound call. But within the summary table, it's only going to be counted one time. That is important to note as it affects all reports, as all reports report the same way within the summary table. It is a summary of the number of calls, not a summary of just the columns. Let's now review the Custom Reports module. We'll go over how to create a report, how to edit a standard report, what parameters are and how to create them, how to use subgroups, and go over alerts and triggers for custom reports. Before we go over how to create a report, it's important to first understand the different types of report types. There are account code reports, agent reports, which are extension or user reports, call costing reports, call direction, caller ID, external number or external party. You can do group reports, which again contains hunt groups out of the Avaya IP office and ACR scale groups. Local numbers, which are your incoming call routes or DIDs, standard reports, system reports, tags, time interval, and trunk reports. Now within each of these report types, you can do reports that consist of summary tables, which are just summary information based off the report type. So for instance, agent call summary is going to show me summary information for the agents. Where if I select the report right above it, agent calls, this is going to show me each call line by line. And then lastly, we can do a call volume report, which is also a time interval report. It's important to understand these three formats because you'll use them when you're creating a report. From the main menu, select Create Report. Here you will see a number of the different filters that you saw within standard reports, such as agent, account code, call direction. You'll also see call reports. Call reports are your detailed reports, which show each call line by line. I will show you how to create a call report for each of your groups, numbers, groups, and the other different filter types that you see here. Go ahead and select a filter type. For this example, we'll go ahead and select agent and then hit next. Depending on the report type that you selected, when you hit add to add a value, it will show you only the available values for that report type. So here we will see all of the available report types for agent reports. Now when you select on each of the values, on the right hand side, you'll have the filter option. So you can go with just a generic call count, or you can customize that to be a specific call count for a particular type of event or group or call direction. Now it's important to note that some of these may already have default values on the left hand side. If you want to simply just go with call count, hit OK. I can then add as many values as I want. Again, if you don't change any of the filter criteria, these will be the default values. But again, you can put as many report values or columns as you want. And some of these do not exist within the standard reports, such as average calls per hour for agent. Now to filter the report values, you can simply select a report type or column header. For instance, maybe I want to do missed calls. But I don't want to use the default definition of a missed call. I want to do missed calls just for a particular group. And I can select all of the groups if I want to, or I could just select one of the groups. Hit OK. You could also adjust the criteria to contain things like maybe missed calls for the marketing group if only the marketing call had a call duration greater than or equal to 1 minute. So anything less than that will not be counted in this particular report field. Once you have all the values that you wish, go ahead and hit Next. Here you're going to create your summary tables. Now, what you see here are the default values that you selected when creating your report. But it is important to note that you can also add additional summary values that were not in the individual columns. Just simply hit Add under Report Summary Values. If you don't wish to add any, go ahead and hit Next. Give the report title a name. You can also select the optional parameter values, put in a static time frame, put in static agents so you don't have to select them during runtime. How do you want to sort the report? By default, it's going to do ascending by agent, but we could do this ascending by call count, descending by call count, or again, any of the values you selected. You can statically assign charts to the report. And with custom reports, you can also change the report skin. You can update the Avaya logo to use your logo. You can change the color scheme. To do that is very simple, but can take a few minutes. Just simply adjust all of the available options on the right-hand side, then save that report skin with a new name. Once you're done, go ahead and hit Close, and then hit Finish. Here you have now created your own custom report. You can identify custom reports from standard reports based off the report type and what it looks like. The ones with the Avaya symbol show standard reports. If it has a little pencil tool there, that shows it is a custom report. Now, it's important to note that many of the standard reports will fit the needs of most of the customers and about 90% of the values. So you can also, with the Custom Reports module, edit any of the standard reports just by simply right-clicking on the report and select Edit Report. You'll be presented an option to edit a copy or original. I always recommend edit a copy so that way you can always start over if you need to. You'll notice here, it instantly already selected the report type that we wanted and has all of the values pre-selected. Now we can simply adjust the report to fit our criteria. This could include things such as adjusting the missed call criteria, similar to the report we did prior to this. We could come in here and select the different group type information and how we want to adjust or edit this report. We can also add additional columns, and again, you'll see all of the default values for that agent. So maybe we want to include average calls per hour. Once you have all the report values, go ahead and hit Next. Add your summary tables. We added average calls per hour, so maybe we want to include that in our summary table. Hit Next, give this a new name, and then hit Finish. Now within all of the reports, on the right-hand side, you have your search or your criteria, your filter criteria. On the left-hand side, whenever you see a specific value, this is considered a parameter. So if we select the report that we created first, I statically assign missed calls to filter based off of the accounting group, but perhaps I want that to be a parameter so I can select that value when I run this report rather than having it statically assigned to missed calls. To do this, go back into your report, and again, this can be done with all of the standard reports. Right-click and hit Edit. Select Missed Calls, hit Edit again, and instead of statically assigning marketing group, leave the groups blank, and then right-click on your criteria selection and select Create New Parameter. You can name this whatever you want or use the default value. Then simply hit OK. Next, next, next. Now you'll notice within the report criteria, when I go to run it, I can select the group. This will allow me to see missed calls based off of the group that I select during runtime. I could still go with the accounting group, or I could select multiple groups, or I could do different groups as I run this report. You may also wish to expand the column by the default or the values that you select. To do that, go back into the report, select the parameter that you created, and under Assign to Group, select the drop-down menu and select Expand Columns by Group. Hit OK, Next, Next, and Finish. Now, when you run this report, you can select all of the groups and it will show all of the values that you have selected. Let me show you another example. I'm going to select a time interval report and select inbound call summary. Now, within the inbound call summary, I can select my date and time. I'll go ahead and select a week, hit OK. I'll select my group. We'll do customer service, hit OK, and run report. Now, this is a default standard report. And here I have my report criteria based off the details that I selected, which was days of the week. But perhaps I want to see where my calls went abandoned. I want to adjust the criteria of abandoned calls, just like we did for missed calls. To do this, simply select and right-click on the report and hit Edit Report. Again, select Edit a Copy. Select Abandoned Calls, hit Edit. And rather than statically assigning where the call went abandoned, I'm going to scroll down to Final Event, right-click, and create it as a new parameter. This will allow me to adjust the criteria of my abandoned calls. So, for example, if I only wanted to see abandoned calls that were lost in the queue or abandoned calls that were lost while ringing a particular queue, I can now do that. If I want to expand the column, so if I select multiple criteria, I can see where each of those calls went abandoned. Hit OK. Next, next, next. Again, we'll give this a new name. And hit Finish. Now when I run that report with the exact same date and time and criteria, I now have the option to select Final Event because it is a new parameter. In here I have all of the default values, so perhaps I want to see if any calls were lost in park, queue, while put on hold, or ringing. Hit OK, and hit Run Report. Now I can see, rather than just a summary of all my abandoned calls, I can see I lost some calls on park, I lost some calls on queue, as well as ringing the queue. You may also choose to select and run the report based off of multiple groups. Now, depending on if the group has been subgrouped, it may combine all of the calls for the groups. For example, I've selected customer service, marketing, and sales. If I select Run Report, it's going to add up all of the total calls for all of those groups into one summary table. If I want to expand those calls and subgroup them by groups, I can do that. Simply go back into the report criteria, add the values that you wish to see, and then here you can enter the subgroup, meaning how is it going to group the report? I'm going to group it by the groups that I select. Again, I could do agent or the final event. These are my different parameters. I'll leave it with group, hit next, finish. Now when I run that report with the same criteria, again, we'll do marketing and sales along with customer service. We'll select my abandoned calls of park, queue, and ringing. When I run the report now, rather than totaling all of the values together, it's going to subgroup the report, or it's going to summarize it. When I ran this report, I had summarize set to true, and so it just gave me the summary information for customer service, marketing, and sales. If I want to see that by days of the week or hours out of the day, under report where it says summarize report, I'm going to set that to false and hit Run Report. Now, rather than just getting the summary information, which I still get up at the top for customer service, here's their calls by day of the week. If I scroll down further, here's the summary information for the marketing group and their calls by days of the week, and then lastly, sales. So again, rather than seeing the details, if I want to just see the summary tables, I can set that to Summarize Report and Run Report. And again, it just gives me the summary information. Now here you can see my report is starting to get a little compressed. So one thing I can do is also change how the report is formatted from portrait to landscape. That again is one of the optional parameters on the last page when creating the report. Switch the orientation from portrait to landscape. Lastly, let's go over alerts and triggers for custom reports. What custom reports, alerts, and triggers allows you to do is query the database for any alert or trigger that you want to be notified. For example, Perhaps you don't want to run abandoned calls or see your abandoned calls list unless a threshold is hit. If you are under your service level agreement, maybe 10 abandoned calls or less for a week, no concern. But after 10 abandoned calls, you want to be notified of that. If you have custom reports, under real-time and alerts and triggers, you'll see the option to select custom daily triggers. Go ahead and create new, give it a name, and then select the value. For this example, we're going to do abandoned calls. We're going to select general call count, scroll down into my report criteria, and is call abandoned. Again, if you want to do this by particular group or agent, I can do that. So if I want to do abandoned calls for my customer service queue, hit OK. When and how do you want this to trigger off what threshold? What is your service level agreement? What number is the number you want to be notified for? So maybe we want to do greater than or equal to 10 abandoned calls. Next, how do you wish to be notified? Do you want to receive a desktop message? Again, this does require Avaya Call Reporting desktop to be installed and running in order to receive that desktop pop. You can customize the message that is displayed, as well as the alert level. Normal will just pop up on your screen. Warning pops up and lets you know there is a warning. Emergency pops up, says warning and emergency, and flashes red. You can also receive an email or SMS text. Again, it's doing SMS to email gateways. Put in your subject line. What message do you want to receive when you receive that email or text? You can now tell it which days to query in the database. So for example, if it's 10 abandoned calls over the last week, we're going to select our days of the week and how many days to query. We will do the last 7 and hit OK. Again, it wants a way for me to notify someone. So we'll go ahead and do a desktop message for Alicia Ford, and we'll give it a custom message. You can change the font, the layout, the color scheme, whatever you want to do. Go ahead and hit OK, OK, and save. You can create as many custom daily triggers as you wish. Let's now review the 2 different setups with Recording Library. You can record calls using Voicemail Pro, as well as active recording within Avaya Call Reporting. We'll also go over how to set up and use evaluations and scorecards, and alerts and triggers for call recording. For Voicemail Pro configuration, let's first take a look at the IP Office Manager configuration. Within Manager, you're going to establish which types of calls you wish to record and how often. You can record calls based off users, groups, incoming call routes, and account codes. Identify which method you wish to record, and then select the Voice Recording tab. For instance, if we want to record based off of users, select the users you wish to record, voice recording, and then set the inbound and outbound recording. On does all or 100% of recording. Mandatory requires that there's a Voicemail Pro report to be available in order to initiate the call or accept the call. And then you can also do percentages. You can also set the system to do external and internal. Set the destination to Voice Recording Library. Do not set it to Voice Recording Library Authenticated. That is for Contact Recorder and Media Manager only. Set it to Voice Recording Library and do the same thing for manual recording so they can press a button on their phone. Hit OK. Again, follow these steps for all of the users, groups, and incoming call routes and account codes you wish to record. Once completed, let's go ahead and log in to your Avaya Call Reporting. During the installation, we reviewed how you have to install Avaya Call Reporting Recording Library as a separate installation. You can do that on the same PC as Avaya Call Reporting or a separate PC. Let's go ahead and select Admin, System Setting, and then Recording Library. Here we can see our previous configuration, but let's pretend we're going to set up a new instance. Go ahead and hit Add. From the drop-down menu, select Voicemail Pro, Again, you need to establish the FTP server configuration because it's going to pull those recordings from the IP Office Voicemail Pro. So for instance, Server Edition, it's going to pull it from the Server Edition primary and secondary based off where those calls are being recorded, or the application server or standalone Voicemail Pro PC. Select Enable and enter a username and password. And then click OK. Enter the recording library IP address. Again, if this is the same IP address as Avaya call reporting, you can just leave it as the default home. Under record encryption, this is if you need to encrypt calls for security or compliance purposes. You can store all unencrypted, only new encrypted, or all encrypted. Please note that if you select the calls to be encrypted, this will require more memory and CPU usage. You can also select Clean Monitored Directory. What this does is after Avaya call reporting receives the recordings from the VRL folder, which is in Voicemail Pro, it will remove those recordings from that destination. If you set this to false, it will leave the recordings within the VRL directory. This can be useful if you're using other recording applications or if you want a backup of those recordings. From here, all you need to do is click OK. However, you can also set up recording storage locations. This applies to both Voicemail Pro as well as active recording. This allows you to set up retention policies as well as drive pooling for new recording storage locations. To set up a retention policy, you can delete recordings older than a specific time period, such as days, months, or years, or you can ensure that you never delete recordings based off of required compliance purposes. You can also add a new storage pool. This allows you to store new recordings to a different network location. This is useful so you don't have to do a database backup or migration. You can just store recordings to a new location, and Avaya Call Reporting Recording Library will have access to all of those different databases where your recordings are stored. Once you're done, click OK, and then save. Next, you need to set up the FTP settings within IP Office. Log into Web Manager or the Voicemail Pro application. Select System Preferences, and then Voicemail Recording. Enter the FTP username you just entered, the password you just entered, a destination on the PC you wish to have those recordings accessed, the IP address, and then you can test connection. Once completed, you can verify your connection in the top right-hand corner of Avaya Call Reporting. Let's now set up a configuration for active recording, which is a SIP connection or an active connection to your Avaya IP Office. It sets up the same way as Voicemail Pro, but you do not need to establish an FTP connection. You do, however, need to establish your recording rules. Avaya Call Reporting has an active connection to the IP Office, so it can see calls in real time, but it needs to be told which types of calls to record. Once it matches a rule, it will send a request to the Avaya IP Office asking for the active media stream. To set up a recording rule is very simple. Simply select Add, and then you record based off inbound number dialed, similar to incoming call route, external number, agents, which are your extensions, groups, which again are your IP Office on groups or ACR skill groups, or basic or advanced call event. This is useful if you want to do things such as agent calls and specific directions. So if I want to do customer service and then the call direction, we can do both inbound and internal. You can also specify if you only want to record talking events or the entire call. You can also specify a recording percentage. You can set up multiple recording rules, and then once completed, hit OK, and you're done. Same thing applies under the recording library, where you can set up different retention policies, store calls with encryption or not. And again, you can establish multiple recording rules. With active recording, you get a live presence of your recordings. To view this, simply select View Active Recordings. Here you can see your current calls being recorded. If you have permissions set up within your user administration rights, you can right-click on these calls and listen live. If you want to remove the recording monitor from the user credentials, just set that under the user permissions under user accounts. Simply select Hide Recording Monitor. Next, let's go over how to set up and establish evaluations and scorecards. To score calls, simply select Score Recordings. Here you can see your different campaigns. To score these, simply select Score. It will bring up your embedded media player. You have your menu option on the right-hand side, but as you listen to the call, you can answer yes/no questions, 1 through 10 questions, and then enter freeform text. Simply select Score Next, Submit Survey, and you're on to your next call. Here you can see your different agent information and the call ID. Let's go over how to set up a new scorecard campaign. Simply select Create New Campaign. You can create campaigns based off of groups, which again are your hunt groups and ACR skill groups, or agents. Simply hit OK. Give it a title. Determine when you want to evaluate calls. You don't have to do this as today. If you were recording 3 months ago, you can go back 3 months. We'll go ahead and select January 1st. Set an expiration date if desired. It is an optional parameter. Determine which agents are part of this campaign. Again, if you want to do all users, you can, or you can just select from a preset user list. How many calls do you wish to score for each of the agents? You can enter a specific number or a percentage. Now you need to add your questions. What do you want to evaluate as you're listening to the call? Again, you can do yes/no questions. This is more of a yes/no type question. You could do a subjective question, 1 through 10. You can also do freeform notes. You can put in as many yes/no, 1 through 10, or notes questions as you desire. Next, determine what type of calls you wish to match for this criteria. This is important because you may not want to evaluate or score calls that were left to voicemail. Simply select Add Filter, and here you can filter the type of calls that meet this criteria. For example, maybe you want lengthier calls. So maybe I want to do calls with call duration that are greater than 5 minutes. That ensures that this wasn't a voicemail. Or maybe I want to do only inbound or outbound calls. I can also do calls if they were inbound to a specific group or specific event type or to specific customers. There are a lot of different event options and criteria to select from. You can also select who has permissions based off of the users created within your Avaya call reporting. So if this scorecard campaign were for a specific supervisor or user, you could select that user up here once you've created those. Once completed, simply hit OK. Let's now go over alerts and triggers for call recording. Under alerts and triggers, you have some standard triggers for recording. Recording issues could be instances where the recording library service has stopped or it's lost connection. You can receive alerts for that via email or desktop notification. Please note that the recording issues only notifies for active recording, so that SIP recording option. Same with the insufficient recording ports. These alerts do not apply to Voicemail Pro as those are passive or they receive the calls after the call was recorded. Let's now review the real-time agent. We'll cover the agent timeline, group timeline, real-time wallboards, setting up alerts and triggers, and additional real-time report values. The first thing you should ensure is that your agents have been assigned a real-time agent license. To confirm, select User Management and then select Licensed Real-Time Agents. Ensure that all of your agents have been assigned a license. If they have not, or if you need to remove an agent, simply uncheck or check that user, hit OK, and then select Refresh Users and Groups. Next, select Real-Time Displays, and let's start with the agent timeline. On the left-hand side, you will see your different agents, and here you can see their current state, how long they've been in that state, as well as what groups they are part of, as well as logged in, if they're on Do Not Disturb. You can scroll the timeline in the past just by clicking and dragging, or select the timeline to select a specific date. You can also change the colors within the agent timeline. In the top left-hand corner, you have your different menu options. Here you'll see the real-time legend. Here you can simply click on any of the values to change the color that represents that value. Simply select the desired color and then hit OK. If you do not like the color, you can simply select that color again, change it to a new color, or hit Reset to Default. You can also mouse over each of the event types to see exactly what was happening and the details associated with that event, such as who they were calling, what type of group was associated to it, the direction and duration of the call. Within the agent status window, you can upload an image to represent the agent. To do this, simply right-click on the agent and select Change User Image. You can then simply open up a file and insert that to represent the agent in the Agent Image window. You can also change which groups are displayed. By default, it will only show 3 groups. Here I can see Alexander Burns is associated to 5 groups. If I want to see the different groups, I can right-click and select Visible Groups. Here I can determine which 3 groups I want to see for the agent. In the top left-hand corner, you can also switch the view from a timeline view to a live column view. Here it will represent the agents in a chronological order so you can see who's been on hold the longest, talking the longest, as well as hold and other events as they occur. To switch back to the timeline, simply select the timeline option. You can also determine which agents you want to see within the agent real-time timeline. You can filter displaying agents just by selecting a handful of agents you wish to see. By default, it will show all of your real-time agents. You can also sort by name, ascending and descending, and same with extension number. Let's now review the group timeline. The group timeline is similar to the agent timeline. On the left-hand side, you can see the current status of all the agents that are logged in as well as logged out. Please note that if you have additional users that are part of the group, but they do not have a real-time agent license, they will not be displayed in this list. You can also select queued calls to see the current list of calls in queue within the order that they came into the queue. In the top, you can see the number of calls in queue as well as the max duration and average duration. To switch to different groups, simply select the drop-down menu and select the desired group. On the right-hand side, you can again see a timeline of how many calls enter your queue. Same as the agent timeline, you can scroll back into the past to see peak times or longest wait times down in the bottom. Let's now review the real-time stats, also known as real-time wallboards. When you first logged in to the agent real-time stats, this is the menu option that you will see. You have the option to use wallboard templates, which makes it easy to create custom-looking wallboards. You can import a wallboard file. You can also start with a blank wallboard. Let's first go over how to use the wallboard templates. Simply select the wallboard that you wish to use and then hit Use Template. You will then be presented with the menu option that you need to fill out. In this particular wallboard, I need to determine the group that I want to monitor, agents, as well as individual agents represented with an agent box widget. If I mouse over the widgets down here within the wallboard template, it will show you where that wallboard widget is applied within the template. Simply select a group, your agents, which again you can use roles, which is a grouping of users. If you need to manage or edit these roles, simply select Edit Roles. You can also select the agents individually. I'll go ahead and use a role. In this example, I'll use Customer Service. Now I need to select my individual agents that I want to represent on this wallboard. Once completed, go ahead and hit OK. Your wallboard is now complete. You can also change any of the default values by double-clicking on that value or by right-clicking on the value and select Properties. Here you can change the title, if you want it to be decorative or not. You can change the value. You can set thresholds, the text font and value size. You can also change the background color and put in a padding or border. Let's go ahead and hit the plus button in the bottom left-hand corner to create a new wallboard. Again, we are presented with the different template options. In this example, I'm now going to select a blank wallboard template. Along the top, I have all my different menu options. I can select from bar charts, pie charts, leaderboards, agent or group box, title value widget, a text widget, marquee, image widget, which is great for logos or background images, gauge widget, HTTP widget, which allows me to pull in information from an HTTP source, active calls, and then shapes, again, to customize my wallboard. Simply select the widget you wish, and then click anywhere within your wallboard template. Click and drag to the desired size, and again, you have the same menu options. Simply select, click to define the value. Here you'll see counts, durations, and miscellaneous. Let me go ahead and explain miscellaneous. Miscellaneous is a combination of features or events that have been added to the real-time wallboards. For example, group wait time. When I select group wait time, I need to select my time frame, calculation, and which group or queue I wish to monitor. Down along the bottom, it provides you a definition of what is included within the group wait time, which provides the total number of time the selected groups were ringing or queuing. So it adds them together. For instance, if I were to do a duration, it will show me and add up if the agent or call is queuing for 10 seconds and then rings for an agent for 5 seconds, it will show 15 seconds. If I select durations over here and I do queue duration, it's only going to show me queue. If I select event duration and do ringing, it's only going to show me ringing. That's where miscellaneous comes in. It is a combination of events as well as additional features. Let's go ahead and select count, and we'll go ahead and select queued calls. For the time frame, do I want to see this right now? Do I want to see queued calls within the last hour or 2 hours? Do I want to do since 8 a.m.? Let's go ahead and do queued calls right now. Hit OK. I can then select queue or group. If I leave this field blank, it's going to do all queues and groups. I'm going to go ahead and select again customer service. I then can also include additional queue events. With Avaya Call Reporting Multimedia, this can include things such as queued callbacks. I'm going to go ahead and leave the queue events blank and hit OK. I can now also set a threshold where I can have the widget change colors or play an audible alarm based off of the number of queued calls. I can adjust my threshold value. I can set the color that I wish to display. I can add in as many thresholds as I want. To upload an audio file to play if that threshold is hit, just simply hit the music note and select the audio file you wish to play. From here, I'm going to go ahead and hit apply. Luckily, I have no queued calls. Again, if I want to resize this widget, I can do that to any size that I want. Let's now go ahead and select a leaderboard. We'll place the leaderboard across the top. Here, I can select a category, because a leaderboard allows me to select multiple values, and I can do this based off agent, group, call direction, or account code. I'll go ahead and select with agent, again using the customer service role, and then I'll define the values. Unlike the gauge widget, again, I can select multiple real-time values. I'm going to go ahead and go over to miscellaneous and select agent state, which is not a count or a duration. I'm going to go ahead and select agent state again. This time, for the calculation, rather than it just displaying the state, I want to display the time and state. And I will relabel this state duration. I can continue adding as many values until I have the exact value and wallboard, leaderboard, that I wish to display. Let's go ahead and do a duration. Again, if I leave the group blank, it will do all calls. Hit OK and apply. My leaderboard is now complete. Let me now show you the most common mistake made within the real-time wallboards. I'm going to go ahead and select a title value. I'm going to select and click to define the value. I'm going to do duration, and I'm going to select talking duration. And I'm going to hit OK, and apply. Now here you'll see really quickly that this talking duration is adding up very quickly, which may indicate that the widget or value looks incorrect or broken, but it actually is correct. It is how I configured the talking duration. If we go back into the properties and the talking duration value, here you'll see I'm looking at a time frame of 0-100 hours. I'm doing a duration. Group agent has been left blank. So it's adding up a duration for all my groups and agents. If I wish to see just one single call, for instance, what's the longest call been today for a particular group, I would want to establish the group, hit OK, and then set that to max duration. Hit OK, and apply. There you'll see my max call today is 23 minutes and 10 seconds. Again, if I want to change the value, I can go back into the properties and I could change that to max duration to right now or the last hour. And here I can see it is counting up as desired. Oftentimes this leads customers to ask, okay, how can I display multiple groups without creating multiple widgets? This is where, again, leaderboards can come into play. I'm going to go ahead and select one more leaderboard, switch the category to group, select all my groups, and again, I could do multiple values, but for this example, I'll just go ahead and do the max talking duration for each group right now, but I'm able to do this within a single widget. If I select agents, it's going to do calls to that group that went to that particular agent. If I leave it blank, again, it will do all agents that are part of that group that also have a real-time agent license. Max duration, hit OK, OK, and apply. And there I have my values. Some tips and tricks to make your wallboard look clean and fresh. In the right-hand menu, you have your wallboard properties. Here you can upload a background image. You can also determine how that background image is displayed by tile, top, left, center, stretch, or zoom. You can give this wallboard canvas a name. And here you can also do snap to grid, show grid, and the grid pixel size. Let me show you what this does and why this is important. I'm going to go ahead and hit snap to grid, adjust my grid pixel to 25, and then also show grid. This will allow me to ensure that my wallboard is lined up and matches all of the additional wallboard sizes. That ensures that my wallboard looks clean, fresh, and the widgets don't overlap one another. Once I'm done, again, I can remove those values once I have everything lined up. If you've configured a wallboard that you wish to use as a template for maybe future customers, you can right-click on that wallboard. I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And you can export that wallboard. So that way you can use it for a future customer. Just simply give it a name and save that to a place that you can get access to. If you wish to have your wallboards rotate if put into a full screen mode, which can be done in the top right-hand corner by hitting this arrow here, ensure that the loop duration has been set. If it is set to 0 and put into a full screen mode, it will stay static on that wallboard. If you set a loop duration, it will rotate with the wallboards that it also has access to based off your user account. Let's go ahead and rename this wallboard Training. For example, maybe I wanted to have one supervisor or wallboard display in the sales arena only rotate between 2 of the available 4 wallboards. When I create the user account for that wallboard loop duration, I'm going to only grant it access to those 2 wallboards. That way, when they put it into a full screen loop duration, it will only rotate between those 2 wallboards. Let's go ahead and take a look. Under User Management, User Accounts, go ahead and hit Edit User Access. Under Real Time, here you will see all of the different wallboards that have been created. You can also grant this user to create additional wallboards. You can give them read-write, read-only, or not visible wallboards. In the example we said, We're going to give the sales team access to the hunt group and training wallboard, so we need to set the untitled wallboard and inbound wallboard to not visible. That way, when they put it into a full screen loop duration, it will only rotate between those two wallboards. Go ahead and click OK, and again enter the name, login name, password, and confirmation for this user, and then hit save. Let's now review the alerts and triggers that are available within real time. Here you can send out notifications to agents, supervisors, customers via email, SMS text, or pop screen messages. Simply give your real-time trigger a name. Select the value. This is configured the same way as you configure the values within the real-time wallboards. Again, you have counts, duration, miscellaneous, as well as formulas, just like you have it within real-time wallboards. Let's go ahead and select miscellaneous, and let's go back to that group wait time. Maybe we want to send a notification if ever a customer is waiting longer than 5 minutes. We'll set that time frame to right now, set the calculation to a max duration, determine our group or queue. Again, if we leave this blank, it's going to do all groups and queues. Let's go ahead and select customer service and hit OK. We now need to set our trigger threshold. We're going to do greater than or equal to 5 minutes. Now we determine how that message is sent, who it is sent to, and in what format and what message is displayed. You can also do desktop messages. This does require that the agent is logged in and has a license for desktop agent. You can also send an email or SMS text. Let's go ahead and enter an email. Enter the email subject and then enter the email body. This is the message that will be displayed when they receive the email. You can again change the font size, the font type, make it bold, change the colors, a lot of different menu options. Once you have your message, go ahead and click OK. Now you may have noticed that there's not a place to enter an SMS number. How you can send an SMS text is email to SMS. All major carriers have a way to send and receive an email and send it out via a text message. To determine the appropriate gateway you need to enter, go ahead and Google email to text and enter your carrier. For example, if I wanted to send this as a text, I would enter my phone number at, I actually do not need the dashes in there, at whatever your carrier gateway is. For instance, if I were to do this for Sprint, I would do something like messaging.sprintpcs.com. And again, I can have multiple phone numbers, multiple email addresses that receive this alert. Once completed, go ahead and hit OK. Again, if you want to select a desktop user and message, go ahead and select your desktop users. This does require that the agents are logged in as a desktop agent, and determine the message. This could be very similar to what you're sending as an email. You can also set the desktop alert level. Normal just pops up as a normal display. Emergency will pop up and flash or pulse red. Warning just stays a static red. Your real-time trigger has now been set. You can create as many real-time triggers, have them go to as many destinations as you wish. Once completed, go ahead and click Save. Let's now review the real-time values that you get within reports. When an agent has a real-time agent seat, within the reports, you can now report on additional values such as their do not disturb time, their group login and logout time, idle time. These are sometimes referred to as features. Within the agent performance summary, you can select the different feature durations you want to report on within those agents. Again, to report on these values, you do need an agent or a real-time agent license assigned to that user. Simply select the feature events that you wish to see. Again, some features will only be available within the skills-based or multimedia solution within Avaya call reporting, such as reserve agent for queue callback, AUXWorks, after call work. Other values such as do not disturb, extension login, group login, idle time are available within IP Office Hunt groups. You can do the same thing under a real-time feature trace, which will show each event type as well as the duration for each of those event types. You can also do an agent time card if you want to see when agents are logging in each day or logging in for each of their groups. All of those standard reports can also be scheduled. You can run those reports on a non-real-time agents and the reports will still run. But depending on the report that you select, it may have no values on it, such as the agent time card. But the real-time performance summary will show you other call event level details, just not feature values for those non-agents. Let's now review the desktop agent. We'll go over the full installation, as well as the configuration, which includes personalized displays, reason codes, account codes, and more. You'll need to install the desktop client on each of the agent's PCs. This installation is found under the Avaya Call Reporting app setup. This is the same installation or setup that included the recording library. Go ahead and run that as an administrator. Hit Next. Agree to the license agreement. Here you're going to install the agent dashboards. Hit Next. Enter the Avaya Call Reporting IP address. The installation is now complete. You'll notice it would have put a shortcut to the agent dashboard or desktop tool on the agent's PC. But before logging in, we need to administer what values, reason codes, and account codes show up for that agent. Log back into Avaya Call Reporting and select Agent Dashboard Configuration. Here you can configure their dashboard values, which is their personalized displays, account codes, busy reason codes, which is for do not disturb, group logout code, so if they log in and out of their hunt groups, they can enter a logout reason code. Extension logout code, so if they log out of their phone if they're a hot desk user. And then multimedia busy codes if they're using the skills-based routing. Let's go ahead and select dashboard values. These are going to configure the exact same way as your real-time widgets, which were found within the real-time wallboards. You can assign widgets and values to the agents two different ways. One, you have your dashboard values on the right-hand side. Simply select the little agent icon and assign those to the appropriate licenses. You can also select multiple agents on the left-hand side and then add an agent value, a general value, or a widget, and it will assign that widget and value to the agents that you have selected. Of course, you can select them later if you need to. Now, an agent value is specific to that agent. So for instance, up here we have inbound calls answered. If this were an agent value, when Brianna logs in, it's going to show her inbound calls answered. When Andrew logs in, it's going to show him his inbound calls answered. A general value allows you to do combined events. So you might do inbound calls answered for the entire team. It's not specific to just that agent. Let's go ahead and add an agent value. We have calls answered, presented, outbound calls connected, and talking duration. Maybe we want to show the individual agents how much time they've spent on Do Not Disturb. Select Add Agent Value. Here you'll see again the counts, duration, miscellaneous, and formula, just like you saw within real time. We're going to go ahead and do a duration, and we're going to select Do Not Disturb duration. We could do right now, last since. Let's go ahead and do since 8 a.m. Hit OK. We could relabel this DND. And again, the duration, we could set this to max duration or just total duration, adding up all of their time. We don't need to worry about it adding up multiple agents because, again, it's an agent value, so it's specific to just that user. Let's now go ahead and add a general value. Maybe we want to show the agents the calls in queue. We can do count, queued calls. Again, same like real time, select now, count for which group or queue. We'll go ahead and do customer service. And we'll relabel this customer service calls queued. A widget are all of the individual widgets. So if the agent would like to have a leaderboard, a bar chart, a pie chart, a title value, a gauge widget, and again, you can do specific to them or a general widget. These configured the exact same way. We'll go ahead and leave those off. Once completed, go ahead and hit OK. Let's now review the account codes. The account codes can be entered when they receive the pop screen for inbound or outbound calls. The same method applies to assigning the account codes to the agents. You can select the agents on the right-hand side or select the agents. Hold down Shift allows you to select bulk agents, or Control allows you to select in between agents. We can simply add our account codes. We'll call this Avaya Training, and they can now enter that when they're entering those account codes. You can also do a bulk add and upload a CSV or note or text file via Notepad. Go ahead and hit OK when it's completed. Busy reason codes are again your Do Not Disturb reason codes, so this list will pop up when they go on Do Not Disturb. Each individual agent can have their own Do Not Disturb reason codes. They apply the exact same way. So maybe I'm going to select my team and I'm going to give them a reason code of sales. Hit OK. Maybe I want to add one more. Training. They will now be able to select those reason codes within the reports and their pop screen. You can do the same thing for group logout codes, extension logout codes, and again, multimedia busy Do Not Disturb codes. The recording pause permission applies to active recording. This gives agents the ability to pause recordings using the active recording method. This does not pause calls if they're using Voicemail Pro to record the calls. There are a couple of other settings to apply if needed that relate to agent dashboards. Under Admin and then System Settings and then Dashboards. Here again you can see your licensed agents. You can configure your dashboard API, which we'll go over here in a second. You can also limit the presence if you don't want to display those. You can determine the pop-up location. By default, it pops up in the bottom right-hand corner, but you can also switch that to the left. You can associate a Do Not Disturb after call work timer if you want to apply that. And you can also allow the agents to enter free-form account codes. So if they're not already selected in the account codes list that you created, you can give them the ability to create their own. Let's now review the Dashboard API. Avaya Call Reporting has the ability to push call information to third-party applications such as CRMs. To do this, you'll simply come in here and add a Dashboard API connection. When do you want that information to be passed to your CRM? You can do on present, on ring, on drop, on a note entered if they go on Do Not Disturb, log in and log out, other different features. I'm going to go ahead and do on present. Where do I want to send that? You can do a TCP UDP socket, HTTP post, or HTTP GET. The most common would be a system browser. If you select that, you'll enter the path. Then you'll add your parameters. What information do you want to pass? A common one that most people use is the caller ID information, based off of the name or the number. And then you'll enter the key that your CRM is looking for. You can test the parameter. You can select which agents this API is available for. Just simply select your agents. Hit OK and OK. From there, your API is now up and running. After you're done making all the user changes, be sure to hit Refresh Users and Groups under your user management. You can also reassign licensed dashboard agents. Please note, it's important that in order to have a desktop agent license, they must be a real-time agent. Simply select your agents and move them over to a licensed dashboard seat. Once you're done, go ahead and hit OK. And again, refresh users and groups. From there, you can now log in to your desktop. Enter your username. By default, the agent's password is their extension number. They can select the Remember Me box and hit OK. Based off what you configured will now pop up on their screen. The desktop client runs down here in the System Tool tray. Here they'll see their custom widgets that you configured for them, and they can change how that's displayed, and they can move that around. They can resize that based off of their needs. If they right-click on the Avaya logo, they can change that from a single rotating view to a floating or a docked view. They can also hide the widget and open it up as desired. If they were to go on Do Not Disturb, they would be presented with their Do Not Disturb reason codes. This is just a demonstration of what that would look like. They can enter their reason codes. If they were to receive an inbound call or make an outbound call, that would pop up in the bottom right-hand corner. Just like that. Here they can right-click, add notes to the call. They can also add account codes. These are the account codes you just created within the system. Again, they can do primary account codes and sub-account codes and freeform account codes if you enabled that. To enable which calls pop, the agents may need to turn on their dashboard pop-ups. Here you can see by default they're all enabled. If they don't want to receive pop-ups for logging in and out of the group, they can disable that. Within Avaya call reporting, once the agents start entering reason codes and account codes, you can now report on that information within the standard reports. To report on your account codes entered through the desktop agent tool, simply select account codes. You can also view this information within Cradle to Grave. To run report on the reason codes that agents enter, simply select the agent reports and then the real-time feature trace. Under the feature type, they will see if they went in Do Not Disturb, and under value 1, you will see their reason code. If they logged out of their group and entered a reason code, you will see that on the right-hand side. You can also run the agent reason code trace report to see that information as it happened line by line, similar to the time card.